Okay, so let's talk about fat burning, why it's something you might want to start including in your training, how you would go about doing that, why is it so popular in cycling, what's the benefits, and is there a place in running for using fat burning or zone 2 fat oxidation to help you be a better runner? Marathon, half marathon, 10K, where are we going with this, right? Today I was doing 10 minutes easy, and then I was doing 45 minutes in my zone 2, which according to, I think his name is Inigo San Milan, who is, if you know anything about cycling, Tour de France, Teddy Pogacar, that's his coach. He actually works within, I think it's like people that are perhaps diabetic, and even in like cancer research, and people's whose mitochondria have started to almost fail them. But he likes to work within elite athletes because he suggests that our mitochondria, our efficiency within athletes is some of the best in the world. So if he can study the cells of some of the best athletes in the world, then that can help him with his own research and everything that he does to help his, studies outside of sport. So today I was doing 45 minutes in that zone 2 area. He suggests that you should be doing, I think it's I know, it's 3 45-minute sessions per week to maintain your current ability at that sort of like fat oxidation area, and then 4 to 5 if you want to move it forward. Now, fat oxidation in cycling, specifically the Tour de France, it's way more important than it is in running. It's very important in running, but if you think of a GC rider in the Tour de France, which is, a 3-week long competition, if they can conserve energy by using fat as fuel and not carbohydrate, well, that's going to give them the best chance of being successful when it comes to pushing later in the race. However, in running, it's still very important because, for example, when you run a marathon, you have about 1 hour 40 to 1 hour 50 minutes of fuel for most people. And so if you're going to do half marathon, and your event is over, let's say like 90 minutes to 2 hours, well, it becomes very, very important to be able to utilize the fuel that you already have within your body, which is fat. So you can store glycogen and you can carb load and you can get your glycogen stores to a pretty good level and their highest level. But at some point in the marathon or even in the half marathon, if you're going over 1 hour 40 minutes, you're gonna have to start using fat as fuel. And so it is still very important. It also teaches your body to metabolize energy a little bit better, which again is ultimately very important. The first time I kind of got exposed to fat burning runs, you could say, was in 2006. I went on a training camp in London, and back then we were told that if you did a run without having breakfast means breaking the fast because you've slept overnight, you haven't ate, hopefully from dinner the night before, unless you're getting up and snacking in the middle of the night. But basically that was breaking the fast of the day before. So if you ran without breaking the fast, your body had to kind of get used to using, you're not going to be depleted, but your body could get used to using some fat as fuel, perhaps if your glycogen reserves weren't topping up that quickly in the morning. Once you start eating like cereal or sugary stuff, that sort of brings glucose and glycogen to the surface, your glucose levels will rise. And so those runs without breakfast, basically a depleted run, could start helping that fat oxidation process. The more you go on YouTube right now, you type in zone 2 training, forgive me, you go on YouTube right now, you type in zone 2 training, it is polluting YouTube in the cycling world, because a lot of these cyclists, like I said, because of the whole GC stuff and conserving energy, they primarily work in that zone 2 area a lot, and then what they do is they work kind of really low zone 2 and then they kind of go really high above. They're spending very little time in the middle. And that's a little bit different for running, but still important. So the more I started learning about all this as a process, I even learned that it's in that zone 2 running, that's where your slow twitch muscle fibers in the mitochondria, no, mitochondria is what distributes energy around the body, but in your slow twitch muscle fibers, that's where you remove lactate from the body. So doing this zone 2 running isn't just about like, it's not solely about fat oxidation, it's also running at efforts that are low enough to teach your slow twitch muscle fibers how to utilize lactate as fuel. Lactate isn't just that scary thing when you go too fast, you go too hard, it rises, you have to slow. That does happen. But the more training you do at some lower intensities, in that sort of like zone 2-ish area, you do start to get better at using that lactate as fuel. So when I show these sessions on YouTube and I just did 4 times 5K and my lactate was 1.7, that's not telling you the total lactate that I was producing. I was likely producing the same amount of lactate that you would, even if your PB isn't, around 15 minutes, but I can use a lot of that lactate as fuel. So because I can use a lot of that lactate as fuel, it's not being deposited into the muscles as waste, it's going into the furnace and I'm burning it and I'm using it. So I'm learning so much more about like zone 2 and fat oxidation and really the benefits are huge. I went in the lab, I did some testing, so we're kind of going to get on to how can you at home start to run it, zone 2, and I did a video a long time ago about steady running and the importance of that and how the physiologist that worked on the Nike, Breaking 2 told me that it was key to, success and things like this, said it was a great video. But I'm learning so much more about basically what I'm able to do is I go in the lab, I do a test. This Inigo San Millan sort of dictated the test, what you'd roughly do. So in elite athletes, your ability to use fat as fuel at slower speeds can often not be as good as then when you start to run at perhaps a quicker speed. And so sometimes your RER score, which is the ratio of fat and carbohydrate, sometimes within elite athletes, it'll actually be up a bit, come down a little bit, which is I'm now using more fat as fuel, and then it'll sort of go back up again. So you're like zone 2 or that fat oxidation area, it's at that moment where your ability to use fat as fuel is at its best. So today, I'm running for 45 minutes because big man Inigo San Millan says at least 45 minutes. I'm running for 45 minutes at the heart rate and roughly the speed from that testing that suggested that's where I'm burning the most fat and I'm the most efficient using fat as fuel to just teach the body to be very good at using fat as fuel. You guys at home, honestly, if this is new to you, this is a new concept, bear in mind for 15 years, this was 2006 I went on that London St. Mary's camp, and since then I've been doing a lot of runs in the morning without breakfast. But you have to understand that if you go on Twitter and you look up somebody like Alan Cousins, he talks about zone 2 for some people being the easiest effort you could imagine. How blessed am I to be able to run along at 340 per K, 345 per K, but that's 20 years in the making. 20 years in the making. I repeated that. That wasn't a mistake. I was trying to emphasize the 20 years in the making. But seriously, you need to look at this as I need to either go get lab testing, which just please go get a bloody lab test. Like it's £20 or something, or $20 to get a double vodka and Coke on a Saturday. You're going to get a lab test for like maybe £180, right? You're going to spend that on a Saturday night. Go and get it tested. If you're not able to go get it tested, and I understand I'm throwing these numbers out of money like they're nothing, I get it, everyone's family and commitments and things to do. Just pretend that your fat oxidation right now is really shit. And I'm sorry to use that term, but just that's what you have to assume. You have to assume that you're going to have to run likely maybe slower than you've ever sort of been willing to run before. And my fat oxidation run can be 45 minutes at this steady effort. What I would suggest you do is you do 45 minutes where you start really, really slow, and then you slowly progress the speed of that run up to maybe like marathon pace over that sort of like 60 minutes. And I mean, if your marathon pace is 7 minutes per mile, that might be starting at 10 minutes per mile. And I can't guarantee that you'll spend all that 45 minutes in that area. So you might want to do an hour, but at least for a chunk of it, you'll be in that zone or in that area. The reason I say that is because when I looked at Alan Coussin's stuff on Twitter, and it is linked to cycling, but it's all the same, they were finding that in order to get people's RER below 1, the intensity had to be so low because this takes years to build. But if you can improve your speed at this RER below 1 and you can start getting better at using fat as fuel, it's going to help your easy recovery days because you're going to not burn up all your glycogen. It means that when you're doing these runs on the easy recovery days, they're not going to take as much out of you because you're not using up all this glycogen and constantly depleting yourself. But it also means on the likes of marathon day, half marathon day, you've improved how far you can run at easier efforts because you now have a newfound fuel in fat. That's about all I can give you. Today was good. These are days that I target as being important. Not as important perhaps as the big sessions that's going to contribute well to your next race, the specific days. Perhaps not as important as, the intervals, the long run. But this is very, very important. I combine today with some speed. So what you can do is you can do your 10 minutes easy like me, your 45-minute chunk of that fat oxidation. Then you can run 5 to 10 minutes easy. I checked that lactate, it was 1.3. Just wanted to make sure I didn't move today from a fat oxidation run into anything higher intensity. That's really important. And then I did 5 times 200s in probably 30 to 32 seconds. But it means that today there's a clear, Stephen, what did you move forward today? Today I helped improve that fat oxidation. Today I helped improve my speed or maintain speed. Super simple. Execute really well, get your recovery, get on top of that, get home, eat really well. If you can take a nap, lay low, take it easy, and then move on to the next day. If you want more tips on any of that, you can check out joggingroom.com. That's a website I set up that goes through nutrition, recovery, psychology, strength conditioning, and then running specific and how to map out your year, how to train at the right intensities, how to set goals, what sort of goals should you be setting, how to handle running when perhaps it's not going the way you want it to, and just help you understand what it takes to be a really good runner. For people that wanted to dedicate more time to be better, but perhaps didn't know what to focus on. That website's there. Like, subscribe, do all those lovely things, and take care.